Just you, man. I want to. No, seriously, I want to give a shout out. Like the fact that you, again, we talk about like Lisa and Jim and Caitlin that do their part for the community. I feel like there are other lead stars, and you're one of those guys that do that. And I'm not saying this to build up your ego because it's your podcast, but the fact that you do a podcast and you bring this content to people, you're constantly developing. You know, how do you do your craft better? How do you learn something from a colleague? How do you bring what someone else is doing to the community? It helps bring value to you, to your vendor partners, but specifically to the couples that are considering things. They're getting information they normally wouldn't get.
Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Beyond the Lens, and my goal for this whole purpose and plan of this is to find the wedding professionals in the area. And I'm like picking their brain and trying to figure out, you know, how they got to where they are, what struggles they had along the day. So for me, I don't do a lot of weddings with a justice of the peace, church weddings, but there's a few of them in there that there is. And every once in a while, there's an officiant of some sort. So we're going to talk to today, Dale Damaris, the most, how do you, when you go to a bridal show, what do you say when that first person comes up and you're like, hey, I'm known as?
The most fun and energetic officiant in Western Massachusetts.
There you go. Yeah. He just said it. I knew there was all of that stuff in there.
Sure.
And you will see exactly what I mean. So for those of you who don't know who Dale Damaris is, you will find out very shortly. We get mistaken for brothers all the time, and it's because of the hair. We do a lot of bridal shows together, so we're either side by side or across from each other, constantly referring each other back and forth. And we met back in 2014.
All right. Stacy's wedding?
At Stacy's wedding.
Stacy's wedding.
All right, so Dale Damaris, Justice of the Peace. We're going to pick his brain about all things wedding, officiant, elaborate, extraordinaire, however you want. Let's go with all of it.
Let's do it.
All right.
I love it. Let's go.
All right. How did you even get involved and started with it?
So it's interesting. I started 21 years ago now. 21 years. And in that 21 years, right when I first, that was actually Justice of the Peace. Before I became a Justice of the Peace, I did a one-day ceremony and did relatively well. I did it for my couple of friends, and then the following year, I did one for a couple of friends, and then my brother and sister-in-law. So 2 different weddings within a year, and at both weddings that I did on a whim, had someone come up to me and say, hey Dale, oh my God, you're so fun, you're so energetic, I love your personality, we're getting married next year, can we book you? And I'm not that guy, I'm one day thing, it's kind of where it was at. Did a little bit of research, looked into what it would take to become a Justice of the Peace. It was kind of a complicated process, and a lot of folks that may be an officiant aren't a Justice of the Peace, and there is a value to having one or the other.
Good point, good point.
So that being said, 21 years ago at this point, I've done over 1,050 ceremonies in that period of time. So it's really humbling, super blessed to be able to do it, and super cool.
Yeah. There is nobody that does it the way you do. And you are very meticulously, which is what I love about it, because when I do a wedding with you, I know, because now I know your system.
Sure.
You do this, you do this. You step aside for this, you do this. You're the only one that puts the hand with the rings out. Nobody else does that. Yeah. Nobody else does that. Now, when it comes to a bride and groom, when they come to you, do you have a pre-made list of vows, or do they come with you and do you have them make their own vows?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing that needs to happen, ideally we identify that personalities are a fit.
100%.
We'll talk about that, and we've already talked about it, but understanding that the person that you're working with, specifically your officiant, the coordinator at the venue, the photographer, your DJ, those are people that you're going to deal with throughout the entire day.
Yeah.
You have to have a personal connection. You have to like that person. You're going to be interacting with them a lot. So the very first thing we do is kind of make sure we're there. I'm a pretty easygoing guy, and most of the couples I talk to are awesome. So that part's easy. The second piece is always making sure that I'm available, just like yourself. It's really rough when you say, oh my God, there's this amazing connection.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're booked for my day, I can't help you. Sorry. So, but back to your question, you said, hey, what do you do? How do you have a preset list? Part of that is finding out what the couple wants to do.
Great point.
I find some couples will really want to keep it super short and sweet and simple. Some couples want to tell a little bit more about their story. Some couples want to have it be a little more religious. Some folks want a little bit more agnostic. Some people want to have it be a little more focused on family, and maybe there are kids that are being a blended family that's happening. Maybe that there's a culture that they want to introduce into that. So part of it is that initial intake. We all do those. As a vendor. We kind of find out what that couple wants, what's important to them, and then we find a way to integrate that into the story. And
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
And I find when we do that, two things happen. Number one, the couple is much more relaxed because it's much more natural, it's much more casual. And number two, and sorry, to the first point, when they're much more relaxed, their photos, their video, much more genuine.
Good point.
And then number two, their guests are much more engaged.
Yeah.
So it's much more of an experience for the guests versus a very standard, overly formal, which we see a lot.
Yeah. And that's a great assessment because I feel like you're right. You do, when we do the bridal shows, we're usually side by side or across from each other. And I see the way that they walk up to you and the way that they interact with you. There is something with me also. There is something they know within the first 3 seconds when we speak. There is something about us that they see is wow energy. There is a boisterous, and I do not mean that in the bad way, there is a boisterous impression about us.
Excitement.
There is, and this is what we bring to the table on the day of what we're doing. So there's a lot of times that you are, all the time, you're very funny and you're very energetic, and because what you're doing is you're causing the guests that are getting ready to come down to be ready for some fun and excitement for things to do. So there's almost like an energy about you that you start off right off the way, like almost like a ring announcer. And I don't mean that as an over boisterous, and you get that whole big, boisterous voice, but there's a voice about you that carries that you can hold attention and you get people's attention, especially when they say it's an unplugged wedding. So if a bride and groom are on the fence with an unplugged wedding, I want you to address me and the listeners how you would approach that. What would be the pros and cons to having an unplugged wedding from an officiant's point of view?
Sure. So you mentioned two things there that I want to talk about. One, the first one is when you get up there, I feel like the officiant, other than walking into the venue, maybe being greeted by some staff that's introducing you into the venue or the ceremony area, the officiant is really the first person that sets the tone for their day. And most of the couples I deal with, again, I have the ability to be a little bit more professional and serious and traditional. I also have the ability to be a little bit more energetic and fun and entertaining. And what I'll say is, depending on the couple's vibe and what they want, a lot more of my couples like that energy. And you mentioned it earlier, when they first come up to talk to us, they sense that from us, right? So they get it right away. It's part of our innate personality. We can't be really a lot different than that.
Correct.
I can tone it down. I can be more formal or traditional, but I've found that the value, a lot of people that see value in choosing me or choosing you, it's about that relationship, that connection, and you say within the first few minutes they see that. Back to the point where you said the introduction, when I'm setting the tone, I'm letting the guests know that this is going to be a little different than what they've seen in the past. They've been to other ceremonies, they've seen things on at a church or maybe a little more formal of a wedding. When I say, how are we doing, everybody, and I do some introductions, I usually make 3 announcements before we start. One is about our phones. We talked about that. The second is about photographers and how do we make your job easy. And then the third is about where the guests are going to go at the end of the ceremony. And by doing that, you're setting the right tone. Guests have the right expectation. They're following along. They want to be instructed. What do I do? Back to that setting the tone. If it's done with more enthusiasm, they know I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. I'm really excited to hear this. Versus, dearly beloved, we're gathered here today, et cetera, et cetera. It's more standard. People almost lose interest. Even though they love the couple, they may lose interest in what's going on.
That is a really good point.
So, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No. So how would you? What advice would you give somebody that's on the fence with doing an unplugged, or and they say, "Hey, Dale, what's your opinion? What's your opinion on plugged and unplugged?" Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I would think that most couples want their guests to be engaged.
Good point.
Ideally, but at the end of the day, it's their choice. So I have some couples that say, you know what? I know people are going to want to take their phones out, and I don't want to restrict that. If we're going to do that, let's give the guests some guidelines. And I'll specifically explain that when I talk to my guests or talk to my couple and I get some instruction from them, what kind of phone restrictions do you want to put on it? I'm happy to say, ladies and gentlemen, today our bride and groom have asked that we have a completely unplugged ceremony. They want you to be fully present for today's event.
It's your wording that's the most important.
And there aren't a lot of people that would be like, I object. I don't want to be fully present for John and Sally's wedding, right? So how do we communicate that in a respectful way? I'm not yelling at anyone. I'm just setting the right expectation. And when you do that, I feel like you deputize all of the guests. So if Aunt Betty holds up her iPad, you've got somebody next to her saying, hey, Aunt Betty, let's put that down. Let's do that. So one is completely unplugged. The second is, ladies and gentlemen, our bride and groom have asked that they are going to allow discrete photos from chest level only, so that we respect our photographer and their role. So you're not putting your hand up, you're not going to be standing up, you're not going to be out in the aisle. The photographer's able to get the amazing images that they were paid to get. Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound fair? And everybody says, yes, absolutely. But for the people that don't want to make it completely unplugged, and they know that there's some social media people, and they know they want to do this, they're able to allow it at a different level. And then there are a couple of cool, fun trends where everybody's silencing their phones. You come down right in the beginning. They ask me to take a photo of them and all of their guests. It's a cool memory for the couple. But again, it's really up to the couple. To answer your questions, I let them choose. And I explain some of the benefits and differences of all.
And I love that, because I do feel like there's a little bit of a trend right now, which you and I did last summer with Megan and Nate's wedding, where you turned around and you did a selfie with them and everybody was behind them. And then you were like, hey, okay, now everybody, please put your phones away. So it gives everybody the chance to kind of like get a couple of shots, turn around, get a couple of shots, selfie. Okay, now everybody put them away. So I think it's almost like the best of both worlds. There's a time to take them, because you are right. And I feel like people mean well, but when they start going like this, they think they're being discreet with this, but the video guy's going over everybody's head, and you get that iPad or phone that's popping up, or you get that guy that's coming out the aisle, and then the video guy. So you're right. And I feel like I would like to see the trend continue to go with limited, get them done in the beginning, put them away.
If they're going to do them.
If they're going to do them, or not at all.
Right.
Because it really does make my job that much easier to do.
Sure.
Okay. So we found out how long you've been doing this.
Sure.
And what is your best way? How do people find you the most?
Yeah, great question. So
Instagram, Facebook, or
I wish I had a better.
Shows?
No, great question. So I wish I had a better Instagram profile. I don't do a lot on Instagram. I admire somebody like yourself, because Ron, you're very on top of technology, formats, the media in which you're going to bring out your message. You're great at the networking, and I get, I get business from a lot of different sources. I'll say the number one best or most frequent method would be word of mouth, right? So somebody that knows you, they've seen you. Oh my God, I saw you at my cousin's wedding. You were amazing. You were super fun. How do I book you? And again, like anything, yourself, the professionals that are out there doing it and doing it really well, my best suggestion to couples is book early or take what's left.
Great point.
Which is almost a little abrupt, but I want to make sure people understand that. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people, oh my God, you're so fun, you're so amazing. We've known we were going to get married, but it's 2 years out. It's 2.5, 3 years out. We knew we had tons of time. They're trying to get a hold of me a year and a half before, and I'm still booked. I'm booking 2-3 years out, like yourself. When you do it really well and you have a great reputation, you're really blessed. Those couples help you fill up your calendar really quick. So
great advice. Great point. Great point.
Yeah.
I am next to you at the bridal shows all the time. I hear you asking when people are walking by, hi, how you doing? Do you need an officiant? When they say no, you ask a question. Well, do you mind me asking who's doing your wedding? Why do you do that?
So it's great for me to understand. First off, obviously, like most vendors, we're all out there and we're investing money and time into our advertising, into our markets, our ways to get to market. So one of those is happening through word of mouth, but we're also getting there through trade shows or bridal expos. And if I'm at a bridal expo, I want to know that the potential at that bridal expo, what it is. So if I'm finding out that a lot of folks are getting married and they're having their friend do it, or they're having their uncle do it, or they know their pastor and they want more of that focus, I'm just trying to understand who's using what. Is it the right customer? You know, if I talk to a couple and they're looking for someone, hey, I really don't want to spend more than $100 or a couple $100, and I want you to do this, I'm not the right person for them. It's okay.
Good point.
There might be somebody out there.
Good point.
We talk about this all the time. We have good fit customers and not good fit customers. And not that we wouldn't do a great job at both, but there's some people that, hey, I got what they call it, champagne wishes, caviar dreams, but beer money, right? So
I'm gonna have to remember that.
Yeah, champagne taste, beer money. I'm sorry, I think might be the phrase. So
I'm gonna have to write that down later.
Yeah. So, but I understand. You know, a really truly talented professional that's got a lot of years in and getting better, perfecting their craft, spending money on equipment and training and networking and all these other options, they may not be able to do this for a song. That's fine. It's okay. It's not the right fit. People will often say to me too, I think we've talked about this in the past about having a friend do it. I've seen some go okay. I think there's a couple of things that I would just ask the couple. Number one, would you not want your friend to be able to enjoy your ceremony versus work on that day? So is it a family member, is it your uncle, etc.? I've also had people say, oh, my uncle, he's great. He's in sales, he talks all the time. I've seen those go okay, and I've seen those go very poorly. Just because someone's a great speaker doesn't mean they're able to hold the attention of a group tied to a wedding. Maybe they're going to get emotional. Maybe it's an incredibly emotional experience, and I've seen that happen personally, and it was a real challenge to see that. It wasn't anything they were doing wrong. It just they literally got choked up, and the flow of the ceremony, the tone of the ceremony, even though it was emotional, wasn't as professional and fun and energetic, and it necessarily wasn't what they wanted to do. They came to me later and said, hey, I think it would have been better to have a professional do this. And even though I do marry some friends, I'm always able to kind of keep my disposition great.
Yes.
There's also some times where someone may be a great public speaker, but they don't know the nuances of a wedding. So if someone comes down and they're not sure where to go, I've done a lot, right? So we can guide somebody. I explain I'm kind of like your guide in this process. And if you come down, I recently had a couple where the groomsman or the best man forgot the groom's ring. Had it back at the hotel, didn't know what to do, kind of panicked. Slid the ring off my hand, put it in my hand, got that photo, was able to still have something that worked that day, but that's something that someone without the experience of doing a wedding would maybe freeze, or it would be more called out, definitely not as subtle.
Very good point.
And a way
that's where experience comes in.
100%. You're paying for that experience. Yeah. So.
Question for you.
Sure.
As an officiant, you only do Massachusetts, correct?
So it's a great question. I am a justice of the peace in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I can officiate anywhere in Massachusetts. However, I am a wedding officiant, not a justice of the peace, online minister credentials to do ceremonies in Connecticut. Because I'm so busy in Mass, I don't take on a lot of Connecticut weddings.
That makes sense.
So if I have a couple near and dear to my heart, special kind of situation, I have the ability to do it, but I don't currently market or try to get Connecticut business.
So let me tempt you just a second.
Yeah, sure.
A bride comes to you 2 years out.
Sure.
Dale, we love everything about you.
Sure.
It's 2 years out. You're looking at the calendar and it's in Connecticut. You're like, I really don't do in Connecticut. We're absolute love Star Wars.
Oh.
Are you in?
Yeah. Come on, man. That's not Lord of the Rings, Star Wars.
I agree with you. There's something about when you meet a client and there's a click and there's an instant, camaraderie. There's like, wow, this would be a really cool couple to work with. And then you find out little things like that. So I want to back up just a quick second, because the first question I'm going to ask you is, what's the difference between a justice of the peace and officiant? Because I do not know the difference. So my second question is, actually, I'll ask you that first. Let's do that one first. So what's the difference between a justice of the peace and an officiant?
Yeah, great question. So I will simply say that a justice of the peace, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the history of being a justice of the peace.
Not really.
So yeah, justice of the peace is actually a term that was originated in the 13 to 1400s in Europe, mostly in England. It was what we would know as a marshal or a sheriff. And their main role was keeping order in town. As a part of that, they could arrest people, they could serve warrants, they could preside as a judge over and even hand out punishments back then in small claims or smaller cases or local town items before you're going to a constable or somebody at a larger district. When the United States back in the 1500s, as the United States were colonized, they actually took that same principle, and it was more of the role of a marshal or a or that kind of role.
So that's where the justice of the peace originated.
Correct. And part of that, again, back then, that was also a role that they did marriages.
Okay.
A wedding officiant is simply a designation that you have the ability to do the paperwork in the state you're authorized to do it in for the state as it sits today. So as the role of the justice of the peace has kind of gone away from more of a serving warrants, handing out punishments, presiding over trials, which as a justice of the peace in Mass, I can actually preside over a small claims court. I can hand out a summons or a subpoena. There's other things that I can do. I don't really use it for that. It's mostly done for weddings, but it's the role has changed a little bit. But again, a wedding officiant simply is able to do the paperwork and meets the requirements to do it. It does not, and this is important for couples to understand, it does not by any means qualify someone to be good at the presenting or the officiating part of that, which is kind of important to understand that. The best way to determine if someone is really good up in front of a crowd, how do they speak, how do they make you feel, what's their overall style, is either to see a video of what they've done in the past or ask for a referral. I can't tell you how many people, we went with somebody online, they were just the beast, they were way too formal, they were way too religious, they were way too strict. We were able to do one ceremony and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I just really get into it, find out if that person's a connection.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to become a justice of the peace now. There has to be an opening in your town. You have to get, it's actually an appointment by the governor. So the governor in the state of Massachusetts has appointed me years ago, and I've had to renew every 5 or 7 years. I think it's 7 years. I have to get recommendations from people I've worked with and the experience and how easy I am to work with, and you have to keep up that certification to do it.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know there was a difference between the two and the requirements of the two legally. So speaking of legally, what legally has to be done and said on a wedding day to make a wedding legal? Meaning, is there a certain type of words that have to be said? Does there have to be an exchange of rings? Because I've heard a story before that somebody didn't say a certain thing and it didn't make a wedding legal because you didn't say this. So is there something that has to legally bind somebody to a wedding?
So all facts, what you just said.
Okay.
So that's true.
Okay.
So the very first thing a couple needs to do is they'll talk to me about making it official, right? So I'll have a couple that says, what do I need to do legally? I'll give them some instruction. You're going to go down to any town any town or city in the Commonwealth. You're going to apply no more than 60 days, no less than 5 days. You can get all the information you want. You can ask all the questions you want. You can make phone calls, do research, but you can only actually submit the marriage application no more than 60 days before your ceremony, no less than 5 days. Less than 5 days. If it's less than 3, they have to sometimes go before a judge because it's a legal contract.
Got it.
Okay, so they're going to get it. They're going to get that piece of paper. They're going to bring it to me. I ask for it on the day of the rehearsal so that I have it. Everything's square. I don't have to chase them down. I have to make sure that they are who they say they are legally. And then within the ceremony, there are 2 things that have to happen to make it legal.
Okay.
And those 2 things are, they have to come there of their own free will. So there has to be some level or phrasing where there is an expression of intent. That's the term you use, expression of intent. That has to basically confirm that both of them are doing this of their own free will, not a quote unquote shotgun wedding.
Okay.
Right? So that's important.
Okay.
The second thing that has to happen to make it legal in the state of Massachusetts or in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, at the completion of the ceremony, after that happens, all of the other things, the vows, the rings, the readings, all those other pieces are, I'm not saying they're not needed, but they're superficial, not required. And the only other piece that has to happen is I have to say, by the power vested in me, by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not the state, by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I now pronounce you husband and wife and wife, husband and husband, married
whatever
partners,
the case may be,
whatever they decide to do. So yeah.
What if you don't say that?
Not a legal ceremony.
Are you? I heard a story.
Yeah.
I heard a story, and because somebody not skipped that part. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Didn't phrase it right.
Because inexperienced, they were in the moment of doing everything they had to do. They forgot to say that, had them kiss and walking down the aisle, and never said, by the power invested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which makes it legally binding, technically they were not married.
Correct. And
this is where inexperience comes in, that if you make that mistake because Uncle so-and-so was caught up in the moment and got caught up and got nerves and you forget to say that,
not legal.
Your wedding cannot be legal.
And in addition, the legal responsibility falls on that officiant. So that officiant now has a legal responsibility to explain why this was submitted, but you never actually said the words, and therefore they never really attested. They missed one of the components. So that wedding, let's say that couple, for whatever reason, has that make it to court for some reason in the future, that officiant can be called as a witness. Did you say this? Was it said? And you have to say you did or didn't. If you didn't, you could be held liable. So you talk about errors and omissions and other things like that, but that's a requirement that every officiant has to say at the end of the ceremony. Now, I'll give you an example of that. If a couple forgets, most of the ceremonies I do, my couple brings that marriage license with them, and they have it well before I do the ceremony, typically the day of the rehearsal. But let's say, for example, they decide not to do a rehearsal, which, again, very few of my couples do not do a rehearsal.
Because you include rehearsals in
most of my packages include rehearsals, So let's say they decide not to do a rehearsal, and I'm only showing up for the ceremony. I ask them that morning, and I tell them and remind them, do you have your marriage license? And they say, oh my God, we forgot it. It's 2 hours away. Ceremony's in 20 minutes. The only option legally for me is to say something to the effect of, by the authority of love itself, or etc., I now pronounce you husband and wife. It's not done by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's not legal, and the date that they really wanted to be their wedding date is no longer their date. They have to meet with me at another time. Now, I have, because I am tried to go above and beyond for my couples, had someone forget it. I did that. Everybody knew no different. Maybe a couple might have caught it or said it. They enjoyed their day. They basically had a friend who they really appreciated, ran out to the house, got the marriage license, brought it back to me. I came back 5 hours later, did that legal portion, which took 3 minutes, that they snuck away from their guests, probably closer to the end of the night, and made it legal, and they still had their same day. It was super important to them.
Wow.
So just a lot of nuances that somebody wouldn't think, not legal.
This is where professional, and yes, when you're trying to save money and you feel like you're genuine by asking a friend or an uncle, there is a gray area in there. I feel like if they don't do it right, you mean well by asking your friends to do that, getting a one-day certification kind of thing like that. You mean well by having your friends and your uncles doing that. And I get that. But the gray area is one small mistake, and I'm going to talk to you about a horror story that I had that I heard. One small mistake, you could kind of mess up the legal part of. Okay?
Yeah, factual,
Okay?
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be a familiar story to you. So without saying any names. I heard a story. I heard a story that a couple got married. Years go by, got divorced. When they went down to get officially divorced, there was no legal papers submitted by their officiant the day of their wedding. Okay? So technically, they weren't married.
Saved them a bunch of money, I guess, down the road, but probably not what they were looking for. And
so tell me a little bit about like a horror story that you had. I want to talk about a horror story that you heard about or you were connected and happened to you. And then I want to talk about like the first kind of like story you can remember that was like, wow, this wedding was just so much, just stands out to me. So which horror story stands out to you? Which great story stands out to you?
Yeah, so I will say, I don't know if you were talking about a horror story for me. I'll give you a couple of examples. One that happened about the situation. It wasn't specifically an error or something on my part, but I will talk about a challenge with the I had someone else do it for me, right? So I had someone do it, and I was at that ceremony, and it was a person that did a bunch of speaking. You can tell they were very, very prepared. it just felt very uncoordinated, right? So this was somebody that was very close to them. We were a friend. It was either an uncle or a godfather or somebody to that effect. They had a religious component where they were either a pastor, etc. And they did things that were, they'd done ceremonies before. Not a lot, but they had done ceremonies before. They may be a newer pastor, etc. Basically, they didn't do a rehearsal, and they didn't know where to go. You could tell that nobody rehearsed. They didn't know where to go. It just looked uncoordinated, almost like people were bumping into one another. They weren't in the right spot. They were trying to move each other up. You're trying to get to the right. It looked very unorganized. Along with that, not exactly the same situation, but I've also seen it where somebody who they think is going to be a great speaker, very emotional, very, very emotional, to a point where they're sobbing through it and can't, because they care about him, and it's nothing wrong. It's a great emotion, just not that day, right? So the tone of the ceremony went from here down to here, and it's just a hard thing. Now, some people might say, oh, I loved it. I love the fact that he did that. But do you want someone to spend 30, 40, 50 seconds trying to get through a couple of words because they're so emotional they can't speak? And you don't know that's going to happen.
Great point.
Okay.
Great point.
Wouldn't you rather your uncle, instead I say, you know what, have him do a reading.
Yeah.
Have him do a blessing.
Still incorporate them.
100%.
Yeah.
But hire a professional do that. So yeah, that's one thing. So that was a couple things I can say. The other thing I'll say on a challenging situation that I felt bad, it was a couple that somehow, when they sent their invitations out, did not put an RSVP in. There was no RSVP. They just assumed that everybody they sent an invitation to, they were an older couple, they assumed that everybody would go, would just be there. So they had it set up for 120 people, and there were about 25 people that showed up. So the challenge to that is we ended up starting at least 30 or 40 minutes late, which is really hard to do. Luckily, I didn't have a ceremony scheduled. I'll usually say 2 to 3 hours. I do them between that, but we waited almost an hour to get it started. And what we did was, out of respect for the couple, went out and took a lot of those chairs away. But we had a whole banquet room set up for the reception that was set up for 110 or 120 people. It was noticeably smaller. They had a good time, but I felt terrible for that couple to have so few people at an event they expected to have a lot more at, and they paid for it. So at that venue, you're paying for all the food.
Yeah.
You're paying for all the people that are going to be there.
Regardless of who shows up.
Took a lot of doggy bags
home.
So
note to everybody, put RSVP on your papers. Great point. Now, give me a story like that stands out to you the most, like was either meant the most to you or was the most emotional to you that was like, this one sticks out.
Yeah. So great point. So there's a couple. I'm going to say one that really sticks out. You mentioned earlier a Star Wars wedding. I have had the opportunity already, locally in Massachusetts, thank God, to do a couple of, I'll call them nerdy weddings, right? So fun, right? Geeky weddings. Geek versus nerd. Smart versus, geeky weddings. One of those was tied to a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones vibe, which had me dressed up in full Jon Snow attire.
I love it.
I held up the ring that was Sauron, one ring to rule them all. I did a Sauron like ring blessing.
Wow.
One ring to bind them. Really fun, and it fit my. It was just very personal. It was fun to me. I didn't know the couple at all, but I was thrilled to be able to do it. In the same sense, I had a couple that Mandalorian bounty hunters. Multiple people dressed up, including the bride and groom, for before and after, not during their ceremony, but lightsabers, etc. And just for the geek in me, truly enjoyed it. Tons of fun. But that being said, that's a small fraction. I get probably more joy on an emotional perspective for a couple that you can sense.
Great point. This is where I want to go.
A ridiculous amount of love, and not when I say ridiculous in a bad sense, but more love than you've seen in a long time, and it is genuine. There is caring, there is affection, and one of the things that I like about old school vows is when they use the word cherish. When I hear the word cherish, to me that's different than a lot of other words, love, honor, etc. But cherish means I'm going to spend every moment I have with you like it's maybe the last bit of time that I have on this earth. I am cherishing it. If you have a friend and a relationship that you cherish, it's different. If you have a partner or a spouse that is genuinely cherishing each other, they're always trying. They don't take anybody for granted. That perspective of taking someone for granted, or the apathy that you sometimes hear about for couples that maybe aren't connected as like they should be. It's the opposite of that. That cherish is somebody that's always trying their best, always working hard, always putting in extra effort for the relationship, for that couple, for that person, so that they are giving everything they can to that relationship. And I feel like you see that with couples and interacting with them, even in the short time we get, Ron, right? So it's done with respect, it's done with caring. There's nobody's abrupt, nobody's disrespectful. It's really, really a nice feeling. And when you get that kind of couple, and that's happened in very small ceremonies, sometimes just three of us. Maybe at a lake or on a pier on the top of a mountain that I've done. And I've seen that in large ceremonies, 200, 300, 400 people weddings, where the caring and love is evident. And I think that we bring out even a little bit more of that when we're able to make it personal. Find something that connects them. What they like to do on vacation, how they met. How do we tell that couple's story and make it more personal, versus I want something, some couples will say, I want something short and sweet. Short and sweet's great. Can we do short, sweet, and personalized? And they go, I want that. Right.
See, and that's the difference with just getting somebody to do it and getting somebody who's like, hey, that's a great idea, but what if we add this? It doesn't add too much more to the time, but it does make it more personable.
Amen.
I'm going to pick your brain about the history of weddings when it comes to this. So back in the day, there used to be a time when, I don't know if it was in the Catholic Church or in the wedding industry itself, there was a time where they said, for anyone that has any objections for this bride and groom or this wedding couple to be married, speak now or forever hold your peace, and forgive me for, it's like a quiet, like pin drop moment. Okay, that's my first question. And forever hold your peace. Where did that come from, if you know? And nobody's doing that anymore either, correct?
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I've only done a handful that even had it.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what I know. I don't know a lot about where the history of that came from, but my guess is this.
I wonder why they would even do that.
This is my opinion.
Okay.
We'll research it later and we'll be like, yeah, right. You can put it in a little box right now. It'll be right here. It'll tell you what happened later.
I'm glad they don't do that anymore, because it puts too much of an awkwardness of silence over wondering if somebody's going to say something or not. To me, I'm glad they don't do it.
So my opinion as to why that happened was because in the history, in a more traditional sense, and even now, people are getting married, it's their choice, but you still need that love, care, nurture, support of a network of family and friends. So I think the goal of that, whether that be a religious component or a civil component, I think the goal was, if there's anybody that has any issue, let's address it right now. Because if we can address it now, even if we got to talk through it and get through it, I don't think that ever happened, but then you have the full support of this community, which then you need for a long and caring love. Because I guess, even if you love each other as a couple, if you have someone that disagrees, or there's a big issue, or there's something that somebody knows about that may be a little bit hush-hush, maybe that was an opportunity to have that be brought forward, address it, so that this legal component, because once it's firm, it's meant to be forever, right? And that was the history of it.
Got it.
In my opinion, I think my understanding about why it doesn't happen anymore, people have become much more casual, much more funny. There's sometimes that joker. I will say that occasionally you have the guest that maybe has a tip or two before the ceremony.
Great point.
Not a great idea. Don't recommend it, but it does happen.
Whether they're a guest or in the wedding party.
100%.
I've seen both.
And I've actually heard, even though it's, I think, disrespectful to the couple, somebody maybe either someone in the groomsmen or somebody in the audience going during that pin drop. By doing that, you're insinuating, you're taking away from the wonderfulness of that day. So I think out of respect for the relationship, they no longer do that because they don't want to risk because in my opinion, someone doing that really puts a little bit of frustration or damper on the day.
Even though they're just trying to be funny.
100%.
Like, you know,
and it, again,
almost like a heckler mentality.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So
have you ever had anybody interrupt a wedding while you were doing it?
I haven't.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. I haven't to this point.
Good.
We got wood around it here, wooden frame. And then the other thing, I'll just say this, something else that's kind of gone away, who gives this man to this woman, which is, again, a much more traditional, old school item. I'm not seeing that at all. I see that more often than I see, does anyone have any objections? Speak now, forever hold your peace. But that has come up. I think the respect and the traditional component, a man leaves his father and mother and takes a wife, and that wife leaves their mother and father and takes a husband. It's someone that back to the old school of dowry and permission and et cetera. There's a lot of folks that are maybe a little more old school, more traditional, and there's a charm to that. But I think our new age world, the perspective is, I'm my own person. I'm the only person that matters, and I don't need someone to give me away. Right? And whether that be a man or a woman, I've seen that from both sides. Nobody's going to give me away. I'm a consenting age. I'm 18 years old, and from here forward, I can make my own decision for what's best for me, and we're going to leave the other part out of it.
I feel like I'm going to date myself, but I feel like when I married my wife, we did it in a church, and my pastor at that time asked, who gives this woman to be married? And my in-laws would say, her mother and I.
Wow.
And that was back, 35 years ago. It's going to be 35 years in August.
Wow.
So that is something that, you're right, they don't do that anymore.
But again, I think it's that it celebrates the person's individuality.
Yes.
And the people that are more traditional and feel like there's a value and a respect for the parent, they like to add that. And if they don't, back to the whole concept of your day, your way, right? How do we make your ceremony done, whether it be photos that you're doing? Everybody does this photo. You know what? The bride and groom may not like it.
Do you have, let's pick your brain again. Do you have a lot of in-laws, father-in-law, mother-in-law, on either side from the bride and groom? That try to influence how a ceremony is written and directed. Meaning, the bride's like, hey, Dale, I really want you to make sure you include this into this. And the bride's like, I really don't feel like I need that. Do you ever have like any in-laws that kind of put their 2 cents in there?
It does.
How do you approach it?
Yeah, no, great question. It does happen. I always explain to my couple that it is their day, and I will tell them from experience, I can't tell you how to interact with your family.
Good point.
If there's a current level of respect there and you feel like you want to do it and it's important enough for you to do, then go ahead and do it. But for example, hey, I have a couple come to me that says, we're not very religious, Dale. My family, very religious, and they really wanted me to get married in a church. But do you have any way of incorporating some faith into this? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I explain to people that I'm someone that practices my faith. I don't judge that on anybody else, but I'm able to incorporate faith, and I'm happy to celebrate that. I have examples. I have ceremonies, sample ceremonies, et cetera, that I can use and do that. I give them examples. How are we going to talk about it? And then we go from there. But I'll get a couple that says, oh, I want this or that. I encourage them. I understand you still have to live with your mother-in-law later. You still have to be able to have family dinners. So if there's something super important, just determine how important it is to you. And then we can or cannot incorporate it, and we'll do it at the level that you and your husband or you and your wife or each of you are comfortable with.
So you will favor the bride and groom's respect over something else. And the only reason I said
groom
that
and groom, bride and bride, but couples,
The only reason I've said that is because I had a mother-in-law pull me aside after I was already hired, nice young couple, and we did a wedding. It was out in Cape Cod on the Cape. Beautiful golf course that we were on. And the bride, the mother of the bride says to me, was it the day before? It was the morning of. She said, hey, Ron, I know you got a lot of things you're going to do today. She said, but I really want to make sure that you don't photograph my daughter with the tattoo on her shoulder. That was a tattoo that she got when she was very rebellious back in. So when I look at pictures, I don't want to see that part of there. So I was like, I will do my best.
How did you handle that?
That's what I said. So
to her.
To the mother of the bride. I said, I will do my best, but she's wearing a strapless dress. So both shoulders are exposed, and the part of her hair is on one side. That means they favor this side. That means tattoo is right here. I couldn't not do it. I understood and respected what how she felt about it.
Sure.
But there was no way to not incorporate that in her pictures when she's wearing a strapless dress with shoulders.
Sure. And I would guess that you would probably at some point take the bride aside and say, hey.
I did.
What was the response? What was the answer
Great
there?
question, Dale.
To heck with her. It was probably, no.
Close.
Okay.
Close.
A little more respectful.
She goes, yeah, I know that tattoo's always bothered her. Because I came up to the bride and it's like, hey.
Sure.
Your mom's kind of put me in this little bit of a situation where I feel like I want to favor that other side, but I know this is your better side.
Sure.
And I will always favor the better side. I always say, what side do you prefer?
Sure.
And because it's their wedding day, I want to make sure I photograph them on the right side. And I say, what do you want me to do? She goes, no. She goes, I know that tattoo really bothers her. She said, well, let's just get all the pictures done. This is my better side. This is what I want you to do. I said, okay, I'm going to do exactly what you want me to do. And that's the way we're going to do it.
100%.
And that's the best way to approach it.
And at the end of the day, if there's one image or two images that don't show that as well.
Correct.
Or if you want me to Photoshop it, if she's comfortable with it and the bride's comfortable with it, whatever, maybe that's an option too, right? So
great point. So, okay, so you've experienced that.
Sure.
All right, let's change gears real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything else, we're going to get to general gist after this, but is there anything else that we want to piece? Because I felt like you've always asked the people when they come there, is it a justice of the peace or is it a friend or is it a church? Because it gives you an idea of how many people are still getting married in the church.
Yeah.
Because there still is a lot of people getting married at the church, and then there's still people still doing the backyards.
Well, and we're saying church, but I mean it could be Catholic church, Lutheran church, Episcopal church.
Great point.
Pastor. I mean, there are a lot of, I hate to say it, but non-denominational Christ-based faiths.
Yeah.
There we go. That a couple, that's important. And what I tell them is, if you are going to a church to do this, is your pastor able to go? Are they able to go? Do you want them to do it? And I get it. That's a connection they have. They are practicing in their faith, and that's something they should celebrate. That's great. That being said, if they want to have faith incorporated into the ceremony, I always explain, like, I will place as much faith in there as you want, and we'll do it at the level you want. We'll do it with the tone and the content that you want. Before anything goes out, I always tell a couple that I'm going to send you a final draft of the script, of the ceremony, of the nuances, of the stories that we tell. I'm going to send that to you. And I pretty much stick to that. Unless for some reason I know someone extremely well personally, and I say, hey, is it okay if I take a minute and a half to talk from the heart about our relationship and how I know you? And they say yes. I've always said yes. And I then will shoot off the hip. But other than that, I've always given my couples an opportunity to review it, make sure that they like what's there. There's no questions. We're comfortable with the terms. What do you want to be called, Jacqueline or Jackie? Do you want to be called?
Great point.
Ron or Ronald? You know, what do you want? What's your name? What do you want to use? Introduction at the end, simple. Mr. and Mrs. last name of the groom. Mr. and Mr. last name of one and last name of another.
Whatever the scenario.
Whatever the scenario is, how do you want to be introduced? Mr. and Mrs. Lorraine and Mark Castingway, right? So how do you want that phrased? And even something as simple as the introduction at the end. I know that a lot of folks know me for doing the fun, big, energetic, enthusiastic. Ladies and gentlemen, it's both an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you for the very first time in public, Mr. and Mrs. John and Linda Castingway, and everybody else, and they all get really happy. It psychs them up. And kind of like it's like hyping them up before they go out. But some people will say, hey, Dale, you know what? And I ask before I do that. That's not just Dale choosing to do that. Do you like a very low formal energy? Do you like somewhere between a low formal energy and the crazy introduction? Do you like it in the middle? Or do you like the more middle? And I'd say that 70 or 80% choose the middle, but there are some that say, no, Dale, we'd like it a little more formal at 40%. I give them an example, and then I roll with that example. So it works out well. You can customize it.
I'm going to give you an observation.
Sure.
From my perspective of working with you.
Okay.
All right. There is, what I like about working with you is there is an organization that comes along with what a one-day officiant does not do.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
When they get involved with your packages and 90% of them pick the ones with doing the rehearsal, there is a day before rehearsal that happens where you're going there.
Or a week before.
And you're talking to them, okay, let's line everybody up. You're almost like, let's say it's a week before. You're lining people up as they're coming down. There is an organization that happens from a JPU point of view that somebody from a day of minister doing the officiating cannot do and does not do, because they don't know how a wedding flows. When Dale comes walking down that aisle, he's walking down the middle of the aisle, he sees the photographer, he's getting the shots he wants, he comes down. Everybody else is lined up in the back. Even during the rehearsal, you get in there or there. When you guys come walking down, you're going to be walking to here. You're going to go this way. Your girls are going to go this way. The guys, whatever the case may be. There is an organization on your end. Then, as the ceremony happens, you go through your spiel. You're doing your whole thing. There's an organization that happens.
Right.
Okay. Because you're experienced with weddings. You know how they flow.
Sure.
Then you do the whole thing. They kiss. They go down the aisle. Then you're there as they're walking down the aisle. You're there letting these two people come up, and you say, "Wait right there." And then you wait for and then they come walking up.
Ron, have we worked together before?
Once or twice. And then and I'm watching this.
Yeah.
So this is what I want my viewers to see, is there is an organization that comes along with having a professional officiant, JP, that does not come along with having a friend of the family, an aunt, or an uncle.
Sure.
There's no organization of the rehearsal prior to the ceremony, so everybody knows where they're coming in and where they're going. I've done so many weddings before where it's the day of officiant walks down, and then everybody else kind of lines up on their own. There's no coordination, and I've seen those people where they go the wrong way or they don't know when to come down, and they're coming down too close to get. There's an organization about that. So I've watched you, even when it comes to getting the rings and taking it from the best man or the ring bearer. Your hand is out like this. He's right there. You tell us.
Facing the guest, right? Yeah.
Yes, facing the guest.
Yeah.
When we come down, when there's a second shooter involved, you talk to the photographer saying, "Hey, who's coming down with me?" Okay. When I'm standing here, there is a handing off of the father to the groom. I want you right here getting that shot of the handing it off. There's no organization when it comes to anybody else. This is where you need to be because you've done this.
Or where I suggest you are.
Or suggest.
You know your
Correct.
business better than I do. I'm never going to tell a photographer they have to do one thing.
It just makes sense.
This is probably the best angle. Based from my experience, that's the best
Now that
opportunity.
we work together all the time that we do, I know your system.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
There's a dream team that happens. We joke about this all the time. When you're with certain photographers and certain DJs, there's a dream team that happens because Seth, Ryan, Greg, all those people that work with you all the time, they know your system.
Yep.
That's part of the dream team. And then you add a DJ into that also because they got to play music and get the intros and people that have.
Sure.
So there's an officiant that, you'll stand over and you'll go like this. And then you come over here to the middle of the bride and groom or the wedding couple, and they're right here. You go like this. You put the rings out in the palm of your hand. Photographers over there getting that shot of their rings in their hand, and you're giving blessing over the rings or whatever you're doing, and you're still talking. You purposely do that. Nobody takes the time to be that organized and be that efficient with the efficiency of a justice of the peace. So that's my observation of working with somebody that's in the industry that long and knows what he's doing. He knows the flow. He knows the way things are supposed to happen and wants the bride and groom to have a very organized rehearsal, so that it becomes a very organized ceremony and coming back in and going back out. So anything else? Go ahead. I want to talk about
So a few points that you brought up. I appreciate that. It's great.
We literally just walked through the whole wedding sequence.
We did,
of it is.
And you remembered it all. So apparently,
I remember it all.
Yeah. So I'll say there's a couple key items there. One is that whatever happens, this isn't just about my role.
Right.
I'm only successful when my photographer is successful, my DJ is successful, the venue is shining the best light. My goal with every ceremony I do, obviously, is to have an amazing event for the couple.
Yeah.
But I am blessed to be referred by amazing photographers, amazing DJs, amazing venues, and and others, brides and rental companies and all the jewelers, all these other people that have the ability to refer me. The only way they do that is if I shine that light on it. Okay, amazing piece of jewelry, but if it's happening back here where that exchange is happening and the photographer can't get that,
great point.
You're upset with me. The jewelers, oh man, my ring wasn't showing out. When I do this,
it's a missed opportunity.
And I get my face out of the way, but my hand's there, and the couple's looking down at that ring. It's an amazing shine on the venue, the photographer, the jeweler. Like, how do you shine the best light on all of your vendor partners that you can? So that's always something that I take as a blessing. Number two, I've said this, there are even justice of the pieces that do things their certain way. And even though they may have done it a few times, maybe they don't do things exactly the same way. just like you, Ron, we're always looking for better ways.
Yes. Yes.
I get feedback from you, I then incorporate it. There are some people, unfortunately, that will do weddings, and maybe they're an officiant, maybe they're justice of the peace. I'm doing it my way, and that's the only thing they say. And unfortunately, it doesn't always reflect the best on the couple. So sometimes, even though that person may have some experience, they're not going to offer the best scenario for the couple, the jeweler, the photographer, the DJ, all those components. If I don't tell the DJ that I am going to do an introduction after they kiss, he's cranking up the music, you can't hear me, and we feel like we're stepping on each other's toes. That's a communication, setting the proper expectations with everyone. So that I love that. And then the final thing I'll say is, I'll even have venues that will say, you don't need to have your officiant there. Whether it be a pro or a friend, oh, you don't have to do that, we can do it. Oh, my uncle can't make it that day. Oh, we'll do it that day anyway. Don't worry, I'll run through it all with you. If your officiant isn't there and there's no way to communicate what's happening, at some point, things will come off as unorganized, right? That's my experience. So, my opinion on those 3 items. So thanks for the compliment. I appreciate it. I enjoy doing it.
This is what professionals do. Is there's an edifying of each other.
Right.
There is a camaraderie amongst professionals, and I feel like a lot of brides will come and sit down with me. We'll talk about everything. So I'll meet them from the bridal show or get them on the phone, and then we come in here and sit down in my studio. And when I start talking to them, hey, what other pieces of the puzzle do you need for your day? There is a lot of people like, oh my God, we met Dale at the bridal show. He was right next to you. That's right. I remember that. Yeah. We're trying to find a way to get him involved in our wedding in some way.
Love it.
And people will stretch their budget because something feels right about having Dale part of the
relationship,
day.
experience, whatever the reason is.
Whatever the reason is. And that's what I feel like a lot of people need to understand, that there is an expense that comes along with having a professional photographer, having a professional justice of the peace, having a professional
100%.
DJ, all that stuff. But when things in your day goes off without a hitch because of the professionalism that starts the foundation of your day, there's no money that could you could put on that. You would like disorganization. They're going to remember disorganization over anything else when it comes to that.
And Ron, you make a great point. I will say this: I could do all the things that I do.
Yep.
But I recently had a couple of ceremonies, and this has happened multiple times, where I take the time, right? I'm there before, I'm going over with the photographer. Again, I'm not telling you where to go or where to be or what you want to do, but here's where this is going to happen. This is the piece that's going to happen. In my opinion, best space is right here. And for whatever reason, they have another plan. That's okay. You're going to miss some things that were important to the bride. So, perfect example, just recently had an event happen where my handoff was the handoff of that groom to the bride with the dad and the hands and everything that I coordinate and take time and practice with at the rehearsal was important to them. I mentioned it to the photographer, but because they had their own plan and they thought, oh, the back of the dress looks cool right here, I'm going to scoot around the back, she lost every image of the front of that handoff and didn't get the thing that was important to the bride. So, and I found out later, it was someone who'd only been doing a handful of weddings. She was very inexpensive, Ron. So again, at the end of the day, the thing that matters is what's important to you. I'm not telling you how to spend your money as a couple. Spend your money the way you want, but identify the items that are important to you. The tone, the images. That handoff was one of the most important things to her because she wanted to give a little montage to her dad. Doesn't have it. That's hard for me. I did everything I could. I assumed someone would take my suggestion. Got caught up, and things happen, but I've seen it happen more often with people that are inexperienced. Oh, I'm a single shooter. I get it. You may not be able to afford 2 shooters. Let's set up that photographer to do the best image they can. The rings. Hey, I've got an amazing photographer, but I had my brother do my wedding. And when he did the rings, he didn't know to hold those rings out like this. When he got them from the best man, they were here. When the couple was exchanging rings, the groom did this, and the justice of the peace didn't do this, so they got no. That happens
all the time.
They got no.
That happens all the time.
So I literally had them square off. But there's all these little nuances. Where to hold your hand.
Yes,
instead of having this dead soldier down here for the bride, I said, brides, come up here, do this right here. It looks so pretty. And if you need help putting that ring on, you can help them guide it on. You're already there. It's a beautiful image. You frames your body well, etc. But again, that's only something that comes with a lot of experience. So again, hire a pro. If there's one message you get from this,
Hire a pro.
You're getting married with 3 people in your backyard, do whatever you want, but if you're getting married at a venue, if you're getting married and doing it and it matters to you, hire a pro.
Experience, goes a long way. And we get and we understand we're not for everybody. There's an expense that comes along with what we do.
Sure.
And we get that. We understand that.
And I'm not for everyone.
No.
You're not for everyone.
Nope. We understand that.
Sure.
But there is no amount of money that you can put a price on when it comes to having experienced vendors that, first of all, work together a lot.
Sure.
And so even if you just told a story about somebody that you've never worked with before,
right,
and you were like, hey, just so you know, this at rehearsal, this is how we practice it. So from here, this is what I'm going to do. So when this time comes, I'm going to do this, just so you know, so you're in the right spot. And I feel like that's a professionalism on your end saying, hey, just to give you a heads up, you couldn't afford a bigger photographer. We get that, but this is what I'm going to be doing. That handoff from dad to the bride, or from the groom to the bride by the dad handing that's moments you cannot go back and restage.
You have 3 or 4 seconds to get that, 5 seconds to get that.
And you're like, I'm letting
gone.
you know, photographer, this is what I'm doing,
sure,
so that you're in the right spot to do it. If you miss it, the bride doesn't get it, that's on you, that's not on the JP.
And I'm never that stern about it.
Nope.
I simply mentioned this is important to the bride. That should be like code for it. Don't mess this
up.
Don't screw this up.
100%.
Right.
100%.
Right. So yeah, great example. And really, really well explained. I feel like when a couple has a piece that's really important to them, again, you spend your money the way you want to spend it, identify the things that are super important, and then communicate the expectations. You really can't over communicate it.
Yep.
Here are the things that are important to me, this. Hire the people that fit that, hire the person you're going to enjoy working with for the time you're with them. Again, Ron, when people hire you, they hire you for your creativity. To this day, I still have friends that I referred to you that say, oh my God, what an amazing experience. He was awesome to work with the whole day. He did this. He went above and beyond. He did that. He was helping us pin groomsmen because we were running late. He sewed a button on. Recently had to do that. Sewed a button on a jacket because the top button was gone, but the bottom wasn't. The jacket was all askew for one of the groomsmen. So I'm like, all right, we're popping it off of there. Give me some thread. All right, the things that you do because it's important to have a good day. But when you hire a person that has some experience, and it's not that there's any lack of love for your friend that owns a camera. Or for your friend that has an iPod and a speaker. But if it's important to you, if the day is important to you, hire someone that matters. I'm not saying overspend just because of it. Find someone with value. And then talk about reviews, references, referrals.
Great point.
Like how many times do we say, hey, I have this, Ron's booked. We've got other people in the portfolio that are amazing at what they do. I want to give a shout out. Like, we're so blessed to be part of this local Western Mass network. Lisa Powers, Jim Powers, Caitlin Powers, the group from that Western Mass group of wedding professionals, where we have a great source. A lot of the folks I work with, I see there all the time. And it's not just about doing a wedding together, but you have a cocktail, you have a drink, you have a soda, and you're able to meet and talk. Oh, that was a great experience with you. And I never knew this person before. I want to add them to my repertoire, and let's give them a shot. Or etc. Having that network, having that group of people together, I think is one of the most valuable components of success in Western Mass and what we do.
That's a very, very great point. We have a very tight-knit group of people, not in a cliquish way, but in a way that is their
support.
Yeah, exactly. It is definitely camaraderie over competition kind of thing like that. And I feel like there's a lot of people in the network that can accommodate stuff like that.
Sure.
So anything else before about the justice of the peace, anything else like that? Because I want to talk about general gist next.
Sure. And just in general, my best recommendation to a couple, identify someone that you connect with. I will say, make sure that you understand what it costs to get married, right? I had no idea, I was really budgeting X amount and I can't get anybody of quality, so I've settled. I've told people, and people have said, hey, we weren't ready to get married financially, so we needed to wait. We should have waited. I'm upset that I made some poor choices about that. I've heard horror stories about that. So make sure that you understand the budget, you understand where people are at. You're booking far enough ahead to get the people that you really want. Ask them about availability.
What was it? Book early?
Or take what's left. Right? So I'm simply going to say that. So there's only one of you, Ron. You're not a photography house. Right? There's not 3 of you that you train. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about someone who has a great skill set and they have associates that they work with that are still great, that are still going to get the same equipment, the same training, the same etc. But you're not getting Ron if you need to book your wedding on the same day as somebody else. Same with Dale. If it's at the same day, same time, you're not getting Dale. You're not getting etc. The venue that you really love, if that room is one room and they only do one wedding a day, great. If they do multiple weddings and the room that you really want isn't available, you're not getting it if it's somebody else already booked it. So the best thing I can say, hey, to all the guys or gals thinking of proposing to their significant other, I'm trying to be gender neutral here, but if you think of proposing to your significant other, do it sooner than you think you need to do it. Have a long engagement. It's okay to do that, and you're able to start planning. A lot of the vendors that we work with take early deposits to hold the dates, and then you can pay along the way, or they'll delay some payments. Some of them can be very flexible if you secure that date first. That's the most important thing.
Great point. Great point.
Super.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Justin, the piece is done. Let's talk about General Gist, and let's talk about what you've got. A lot of events coming up. So what else can we plug about General Gist? How it started? Where you guys? This is a band that's been around for a while.
Sure.
And where do you guys play? And what events do you have coming up that you know of in the next couple of months?
Yeah. So I'll simply say that I'm very fortunate to. Everything I've done. So Justice of the Peace came to me. I know I'm back in Justice of the Peace, but Justice of the Peace came to me from my affinity and my love of speaking in public. Some people hate it. I love it. So that's how that that's how the Justice of the Peace came to be. Someone had asked me to do it. I did well with it, and then it kind of grew from there. I've been involved in music at multiple levels for years, and I started a band with a group of people a long time ago called Tease back in the 80s. I was in a band called Silent Echo with my brother and some friends back in the day. The project I've been in for the last 14 or 15 years is called the General Gist. And that General Gist project has grown from a couple of different folks, somebody leaving, somebody coming on, and then adding a component. But our current configuration has been in effect for a while. It's, in my opinion, been the best configuration. We are classic rock, blues, a little bit of country, a very diverse repertoire of music, and the concept is rockin' good times, right? So you get up and dance, having fun, meeting with friends. It's really been kind of great to see the local local music community in Western Mass. We're extremely blessed to have the people that we have.
You have a big following too. You have a very, very big following.
We're very, very blessed to have what we have. There's a few guys in the band that work harder on that, that really put a lot of time into it. Jamie Aubrey is called the band manager, official or not official, but spends probably 10 hours a day. I feel like 20 hours a day, 30 hours a week, sometimes working on General Gist videos, posts, posting on pages, awareness. Full-time guy, extremely talented, lots of energy, but he does a lot of work that helps the band. So that being said, it's great to be able to promote it, but you have to really click. And the guys that we work with right now, we really click. We enjoy playing, been able to tighten up the music to have a lot of fun. We're not perfect with every little musical note, etc. We have a lot of fun with it. It's enjoyable. And we play usually about twice a month in Western Mass or Northern Connecticut. And the next few projects coming up, again, after this Thursday, we're doing one at the Break in Wilbraham. It's above Snooker's Billiards, and it's on a Friday. Beautiful music venue.
What's the date
smaller,
of that?
The 27th of June.
Okay,
yep.
27th of June.
After that, we've got a few other projects coming up. I don't know the exact date, but a few more shows coming up. We're at the Rumble Seat. We're doing a handful more Westville River Brewing. We have a few more projects coming up. They're all on the Gist list. The best way to do it, General Gist Facebook page. It's got a symbol that only people my age and your age, Ron, would know, the record adapter.
The record adapter. 45, right?
Yeah, that's it. You got it. So if you see that, if you see that, you know you've got the right. There is another group from Canada. They got about 300 followers. They're probably all of our friends that accidentally signed onto them and then jumped in ours. But we are very close, 3,800 followers.
Wow.
We call them friends. Like it's not. Everybody jokes about the whole having fans. We don't have any fans. We have a lot of people that are friends, and it's part of that local music community. So really, really blessed. Enjoy the music that we do. Love the guys I play with. It's a ton of fun. 2 to 3 times a month, and sometimes busier, sometimes less busy. Private parties, etc. It allows us to scratch our musical itch, have fun. It's another channel for me to get up and present and have fun and engage with people. by all means, not the most technically
That's okay.
perfect.
That's okay.
But I guarantee one of the most fun. And you've been.
Yeah.
You've seen the energy.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Same energy.
I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it.
The same energy that we bring to a wedding, to a couple, to a venue, to an event, is the same type of energy that our crew brings to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Just you, man. I want to. No, seriously, I want to give a shout out. Like the fact that you, again, we talk about like Lisa and Jim and Caitlin that do their part for the community. I feel like there are other lead stars, and you're one of those guys that do that. And I'm not saying this to build up your ego because it's your podcast, but the fact that you do a podcast and you bring this content to people, you're constantly developing. How do you do your craft better? How do you learn something from a colleague? How do you bring what someone else is doing to the community? It helps bring value to you, to your vendor partners, but specifically to the couples that are considering things. They're getting information they normally wouldn't get.
Yeah. Is that right?
Of course.
Right.
It's your podcast. You do whatever you want.
That was a lot of information from the concept of being a justice of the peace, where the justice of the peace originated, and the rules and the guidelines of what their rules were, and the difference between an officiant and a justice of the peace, and the rules and the guidelines. And we learned about what is legally binding on a wedding day to say certain words in a certain way. That's legally binding when it comes to that. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of hiring a professional for your wedding day. I want to thank Dale for coming in and just, sharing his expertise and his information, because it's vital to the community to educate. This channel is just all about educating people about all things weddings and wedding related information. And I feel like that was information that even I didn't know doing that. So all of Dale's information is going to be down in the description. All of General Gist information is going to be down in the thing. I'm going to put the next couple of dates that they have coming up, so that if you're available, go check them out at the dates that they have over there. So thank you guys for coming back to the channel. Remember to smile more, because it sure does hurt less. Peace.